Alright, hello, this is Jeremiah Rhodes, and this is my behavioral ecology midterm. I recorded this PowerPoint as my assignment. So I'm going to go ahead and address the questions I aim to answer. They are, the aim of life is to win, so what is winning? What does it mean to win? What are the currencies of winning? And what are the strategies used to help you win? Okay, so I'm going to start off with what is the definition of winning. When I think about winning, I think about competition, and usually during competitions, there are two outcomes. There's one that is beneficial and one that might be harmful or have no effects. That one that I classify as beneficial is what is considered winning. That one that is classified as maybe harmful or has no effect is losing. So there's a winner and there's a loser from a competition. There can be multiple individuals competing, or there can be groups of individuals competing. This can be seen like in a chess match. It is a one-on-one game, a one-on-one competition with one winner and one loser. And then an example of a group could be a group of students competing in a review game in class for extra credit. And there can be one winning group and then one group that loses. One winning group and multiple losing groups. So winning is kind of, or competition and winning is associated almost in our everyday lives, something that's very important to humans. Looking in the world of academia, professors write grants and compete for funding, where there will be one winner who might get funding for research. Students compete with each other to have the highest test scores, so they win and pass the class. Sports teams compete and overall try to win the big championship game. And even in like everyday tasks like getting on the bus, you might be the last one to get on the bus and you win that last seat, and that other person has to sit and wait for the next bus to come. I did find some cool studies about winning in competition. This Kildani et al. 1976. They found that students are more likely to wear school apparel after a collegiate football win rather than a loss. So this kind of suggests that students want to be associated with the team and therefore associated with the win, even though they didn't really compete in the game. And they also found that students are more likely to say "we" in association to the team after a win. So like, "we won the game," compared to if the team lost, they're more likely to say "they lost the game." And here I have the table from their study about the students wearing apparel, and you can kind of see the wins and non-win breakdowns in the schools they used in the study. I think this data ended up being non-parametric, and they had to run some different tests, which is why there's some parentheses there. And then also winning affects our moods. Hill et al. Did a study where they made basketball fans watch some college basketball home and away games, and then they give them a questionnaire after the game about the team's performance, players' performances, and then after they filled out that questionnaire, they gave them a questionnaire about how do they think the team is going to perform next year. And after a win, they were more optimistic and hopeful about the team's season next year than compared to a loss. And they also made the individuals that performed the questionnaire, the participants, they also made them perform tasks after the questionnaire, and they found their moods and their performance were better after a win compared to a loss. So let's look at winning in a biological sense. So I think Brommer et al. 2002 has a pretty good definition of fitness. It portrays to what degree an individual's genetics are represented in a future generation. So fitness, as we talk about in ecology, is an individual's ability to survive and reproduce. And so that's what we kind of classify as winning in a biological sense, an individual's ability to survive and reproduce. And that comes through competition. And with competition compared to humans, for animals, competition, the stakes are much higher. losing can have more of a dramatic effects. If you lose a competition for a resource like food, you might starve and you die and you're not surviving. Or if you lose an opportunity for mating, you're not going to be able to pass on your genes to the next generation, and you're losing your fitness. You're not passing on your genetic information. So what does it mean to win? Again, reproduce and survive. Reproduction is related to an individual's fecundity, its ability to produce viable offspring. There's a few factors that influence reproduction. The morphology and behavior are kind of two that I'm going to talk about with reproduction and survival. For morphology, for reproduction, first thing I thought of was the optimal egg size theory. So you kind of have to turtles want to produce large offspring in large clutches because they're more likely to survive, but they can't pass large eggs through their pelvic girdle. There's only such a large eggs they can pass. So they kind of have to look at the cost, benefits, and the trade-offs there, and produce as large eggs as possible, but also giving their eggs and their juveniles the highest chances to survive because they're trying to pass on their genes. Behaviorally, I thought of the sexy sun hypothesis in frogs. The sexy sun hypothesis is you have to be the best salesman to pass on your genes, and frogs give advertisement calls to attract female frogs. So they're like, hey, come over here, let's mate. And the females will go to the best sounding frogs from their frequency or intensity. And there might be some sneaky males hiding out, and they might intercept the females and steal them away. And now looking at survival, it's your ability to live and adapt in an environment. So factors that can influence that are, again, morphology and behavior. Some species or individuals might have morphological traits that make them better at finding prey, or finding food, or finding resources than you. And then behaviorally, I thought of the selfish herd theory. The middle is the safest place to be, as shown in this diagram here. You want to spend more time in the middle than on the outsides, because you're more likely to be predated upon. And these traits have challenges that individuals go through. There's going to be costs and benefits to everything, but there's also going to be challenges. So there might be interspecific competitions. Individuals might be better at calling than you, and then they should be able to reproduce more than you or find better mates. They might be better at finding food than you. They might be larger than you. There's also interspecific competition like predation. That calling might attract predators and they might eat you. And then also environmental conditions. Temperature, rainfall can limit your ability to survive and reproduce. So what are some currencies of winning? So first I'm going to define currencies as mediums of exchange. So you exchange this in order to win. The first I thought of was energy. Living is costly. All these activities that an individual performs cost energy, and energy has to be conserved and allocated in a biological sense. And I thought of frogs again. So calling is an energetically costly behavior. It has its risks, like attracting predators. You also have a lot of competition. But your ultimate goal is to reproduce. And if you don't call, it's going to be harder to find a mate. Time is also a currency of winning. The first thing I kind of thought of with this was some species are heteroparous. They kind of have one mating event and then they die. They don't have time. They might not have time to find the perfect mate. They might be short-lived. If they wait too long, they might not be able to find that mate, or their breeding event ends, and then they die. They don't pass on their genes. They don't survive. They don't reproduce. I did find a cool paper about mountain goats, and you can kind of see by this graphic here, the probability of future reproduction decreased with the residual offspring mass. So if they pretty much gave birth, then their probability of reproducing again decreases, you can see, by 0. So they'd probably want to give birth to as large as offspring as possible to give them the best chances to survive, and then therefore pass on their genes to that next generation. Some other trade-offs, some other currencies are resources. Some species might share resources like food or habitat, or provide care to offspring in hopes that other individuals might reciprocate later. These examples of currencies translate to the human world. In basketball, you're not going to be the best basketball player, and you're not going to win the most games if you don't put in a lot of time, a lot of effort and energy, and you have resources to help you improve. Okay, so there's a lot of strategies that individuals can use to help them win, and I'm going to talk about a few here. And one is mating systems. So there are a few different types of mating systems, and these mating systems might benefit your own individual success, so it might help you survive or reproduce. So the first type is monogamy, so that's more like pair bonding. You might have one male, one female that live together for short term or long term and reproduce together. There's also polygyny, so that's a male that mates with several females, while the females each mate with only one male. And there's also polyandry, which is the opposite. A female is associated with several males at once. And there's also promiscuity. Both male and female mate several times with different individuals. So it's sort of a mixture of polyandry and polygyny. And those both have different strategies associated with them. One thing we kind of talked about is polygamy might be more likely to happen in habitats that are scattered with distribution of resources that are patchy, pretty much. And I found this paper about caiman crocodiles and polygamy, and I thought it was pretty cool. So not much is known about some species of crocodilia mating systems, so their goal was to kind of define the mating system of the group. Are they monogamous? Are they polygamous? And then if they're polygamous, are the females polyandrous? And they also wanted to know, do males contribute equally to the paternity of offspring, or are there dominant males? The study was done in Brazil, and they kind of did this through genetic testing is how they found out the paternity. And they ended up finding that 95% of the offspring had 95% of the nests had multiple paternity. These results were higher compared to some other crocodiles that use polyandry, which was interesting. And it's kind of thought that these caimans have been overexploited and live in kind of overexploited habitats. So this strategy might be done by females to reduce inbreeding and increase their population. So that's one strategy that individuals might use. So another one is social organization and group living. So having more individuals working together can increase your chances of survival and reproduction. You have more individuals looking out for predators, so that's increased vigilance. You have that dilution effect, so you're less likely to be predated upon in a larger group. You also have that confusion effect where some predators might not be good at trying to capture just because it can be confusing on which individual to attack. And then you might have group defense, and then living with kin. So that can also, living with kin can increase your indirect fitness by helping them survive and reproduce. And sort of this is what this paper I found about. It was the golden crow sparrows, I believe. Arnberg et al. 2015. So living with kin can increase your indirect fitness, and in this paper they wanted to examine the social complexity and kin composition of the golden crow sparrows. And they already defined in the paper that the groups were considered stable and they migrated together. So they investigated the social structure and the kinship, and in the results they found groups showed low relatedness, and this can kind of be seen in figure 1 here, that the probability of relatedness decreased in both seasons pretty rapidly, so there you can see there's not really any correlation to relatedness. They ended up finding also that approximately 75% of all the sparrows in the group were actually female sparrows, and that the males might migrate at a different time and might migrate different distances. So they thought maybe this had to do with reciprocity and cooperation, and it might counter the destructive consequences of cheating. Alright, and another strategy that is used is parental care. So parental care is a strategy used to ensure that your offspring survive and have a chance to pass on your genes to that next generation. So there are examples like providing protection, like nest guarding or nest attention, providing food to offspring, providing care, and then we might see this in like indirect development offspring or precoccal young. And I found this paper on glass frogs that exhibit the behavior of nest attendants. So this kind of combats predation and dehydration. They deposit their eggs on leaves like seen in these pictures, but also in like rocky structures, and they're usually near water as well. So the author predicted that this was to mediate the coevolution of parental investment, and to study this they removed the males and tested predation and dehydration of eggs. And as you can see here with the control and with the removal, that predation embryo mortality was a lot higher in the groups where they removed the father than the control groups. So removing the fathers increased the egg's chance of predation and dehydration. And this one is the only one where predation was higher in the control. Okay, so now we're going to look at strategies in humans that relate to strategies seen in animals, non-human animals, sorry. So cooperation, human societies have a lot of cooperation, and that can be seen in like some workplaces, but we also have alloparental care, which is pretty common, where individuals other than the mother take care of the children. This can be seen in like daycares or our schooling systems, where there might be cooperative child care, but the schools might teach the children. And this also relates to reciprocity. Sometimes individuals might take care of children or individuals in hopes that they might take care of their children, individuals in the future. So I pulled up the study that we've looked at before by Martin et al. In 2020. Harsh environments promote alloparental care across human societies. So they wanted to look at what evolutionary factors influence the evolution of cooperation and alloparental care in humans and kind of relate it back to what they've seen in animals. And they predicted that environmental harshness is likely the cause, and they defined harshness as pretty much less not predictable environments. And they found that alloparental care increased in these harsh environments. As you can see here with the temperature, it was correlated with precipitation and then also starvation. So it was more likely to happen if the precipitation or temperature was harsh or not predictable, and then also likely to happen in starvation. So alloparental care promotes fitness in the faces of ecological challenges. Alright, that is it. Here are my sources here. APA format, I don't own any of the pictures used. And that is it for my midterm. Thank you.